You cannot hide from God. You cannot hide from God. You can hide from me. You can hide from your pastor. You can hide from your wife. You can hide things from your husband. You can hide things from your children. But you can't hide from God. God sees everything. He knows the intention of your heart for every choice that you make, every decision, everything that you say in conversation. God looks at one thing, your heart. And God, the Bible says, He who searches the heart and knows the mind. So God knows us inside and out. You cannot hide from God. The Bible says in Ecclesiastes 8:11, because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily. Therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. In other words, Solomon says that just because we don't reap what we sow overnight doesn't mean that we don't reap what we sow. But the Bible says God will not be mocked. Whatsoever a person sows, that person shall also reap. But the Bible says because sentence, because that reaping doesn't always happen overnight. You can live a life in sin for years thinking you're getting away with it. You can live a life in secret sin for 10 years, 15 years, and think just because judgment has not been passed that somehow we've slipped by or somehow we've gotten by God. But understand this, you shall reap what you sow. You know, many times we could pray for children for years and not see anything and wonder if God's hearing our prayer. And then one day, the appointed time comes and that seed that you've been watering for years and years and years comes to harvest. We're told of a bamboo seed that the farmer that plants a bamboo seed, he has to plant that thing in faith because it's very different than other seeds. You see, usually a farmer and human nature is to work based upon what we see. If we don't see results, we give up. And so a farmer under normal circumstances plants a seed, puts it in the ground, and begins to water it. He begins to labor for that seed. He begins to give it sunlight. He begins to nourish it and to dress it. And the next day he comes and maybe there's a sprout up and maybe there's a green leaf. And he's told by that sign that my efforts are paying off. But the farmer who plants a bamboo seed is very different because although he waters it, although he dresses it, although he nourishes it for days, and I forget how long the process, I think it's something like 6 months, he sees absolutely no sign whatsoever that his efforts have done anything at all. The only thing he can do is put faith in the process. The only thing he could do is put faith in nature, knowing that nature will run its course. And after 6 months of just doing the same thing over, it's much like when you pray over and over and over and over and you wonder, is God ever going to hear my prayer? Is anything ever going to change? Am I ever going to reap the harvest of what I've been sowing? But after 6 months, that tree, that bamboo shoot, shoots up 6 feet tall in just a couple weeks. You know, this is the way it is with sin. For many years, we could sow the wrong seed and think that we don't see any result from it, so it's okay. And something starts so small in our heart. Your sin will find you out. The Bible says in Numbers 32:23, if you will not do so, behold, you have sinned against the Lord. And be sure. Yes, sir. Be sure. Your sin will find you out. The Bible paints a very amazing picture of a man who thinks he's sinning and getting away, much like a fugitive. You know, when a fugitive, a person commits a sin, person commits some heinous act, and he goes on the run, running from the police, running from the government, running from the law. And that man thinks he can get away with it, and oh boy, I really pulled one over. I really pulled one over. No one's ever going to know, and I got away with it. And now I got all this money or whatever the profit was. But the part that you don't see is the man, his entire life, he's always looking behind his shoulder. He's always miserable, wondering if anybody's going to find out. And eventually that pressure will cause him to make a mistake. And the law the whole time is chasing him, looking for him, watching for him, watching. They know eventually he'll make a mistake. And this is the picture that the Bible paints for a man running from God. And your sin literally follows you and haunts you and chases you. You may move from church to church. You may move from place to place, but you can't outrun God. You can't outrun the Spirit of God. If you're a son of God, He'll chase you. He'll haunt you. He'll bring you to justice. And the Bible says the wages of sin, what it pays, it's payment. You know what it pays? Death. Pleasure for a season. Thinking that we've gotten away. Isaiah 29, 15 and 16. Woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from the Lord. And their works are in the dark. And they say, who seeth us? And who knoweth us? No one's going to find out. This just happened once. She'll never know. He'll never know. I can just cover it up and it'll be okay and I'll just move on. And the pain that it would cost him for me to confess that would be greater than the reward. You know who's talking to you? The liar. The father of lies. Are you here this morning? Woe unto them. Now listen, Job 34:21 says, for his, whose? God's, his eyes are upon the ways of man, and he seeth all his goings. There is no darkness nor shadow of death where the workers of iniquity may hide themselves. Human beings think they can hide from God, and eventually this secret sin begins to drive us from the presence of God. The first thing that Adam and Eve do after the fallen nature comes in, after the fall happens, one of the first attributes is to hide, to cover up, to make a religion, to ease the conscience, to cover themselves. And the first thing that a person, a Christian, will do after living a life of sin that no one knows about, they'll begin to hide themselves. Satan will, you don't want to know what the devil will do to you? He'll push you away from church. He'll push you away from fellowship. He'll push you away from brothers and sisters. You'll become reclusive. That is not attributes of God. The Bible says in Him there is no darkness at all. There is only light. There is only exposure. Listen, Christians should be the most transparent people on the face of the earth. We have nothing to hide. We have nothing to run from. It is the devil who pushes you into a closet. It is the devil who tells you don't confess, don't make it right. It is the devil who puts fear in your heart to stay under that religious cloak.